I'm very, very grateful to be here. I'm very pleased and honored that Pastor Manoj asked me to come. I know many of you. I've known you for years and years and years. I think the person I've known longest here is Dr. Edwin Ong, because I met him the first week I met the church, and he said to me at the time, make sure you study the divine principle. It's very important. I took that very seriously, and I have studied it many times. And just as a side note, I'm kind of intrigued sometimes when I ask someone, are you going to go to a workshop or study the principle? Or they say, oh, I've heard it 3 or 4 times. I know it. I know it already. I actually have taught the principle all the way through about 1,000 times. And the thing that amazes me is that every time I read it, or every time I speak it, or every time I discuss it, I learn something new that I didn't know before. The principle is incredibly profound and powerful. And in fact, doing Hunde readings, reading Father's words, it's very hard to understand sometimes what Father means if we don't understand the principle to begin with. It's really important. So what I want to talk about today, since you've given me this opportunity, it's not really a sermon. I'm just your brother, and I want to share some thoughts I have about happiness, about being happy and doing God's will. Hi, David. It's good to see you. Old buddy David Eaton down there. We went through the trenches together back in the 90s. Are you happy? Are we happy? How many of you are happy? Can you raise your hands? I'm happy. I'm happy. Well, actually, we should all be raising our hands. Think about this. Think about this. 2,000 years ago, Jesus lived for a very short time. His public ministry was only 3 years. And only a few thousand people met him, but most of them didn't know who he was. Only a handful of disciples stayed with him, and even those were pretty shaky. Then in retrospect, later on, Christians say, oh, if I had lived at the time of Jesus, I would have followed. If I had been there, I would have known who he was. I would have done this thing. And how many Christians do you think really would give their life to be able to say, to be able to spend even an hour or even 5 minutes with the real living Jesus? Many people who are devout Christians would do anything to say, I spent 5 minutes with my Lord. But we, Unification Church members, have had the opportunity to spend 40 years or more with our true parents on this earth. And many times we don't stop to think about what an incredible blessing that is. In human history, how many trillions of people have been born? Even now there are 7 billion people on the earth, but we don't know how long, we have no idea how far back human history goes. It might go back 40,000 years or 40 million years. Archaeologists just don't know. But billions, at the very least, billions and billions and billions of people have lived, and none of them met true parents other than those of us who are alive today. It's a tremendous blessing. And not only that, we have the blessing of being engrafted into the blood lineage of God and true parents. We have the blessing of being part of God's true family. In all of history, no one had this blessing. No one, even the disciples who met Jesus, were not able to attain that blessing. But we have it. And that means our children and our grandchildren for eternity will be able to be a part of God's family. So we should be the happiest people in the whole world. So are you happy? Yeah. Are you really happy? Okay, here's the thing. Day-to-day things set in on us, right? Things impinge upon us. We want to be happy. We know we're happy. We're blessed. We're the most blessed people. But still, there's the everyday. You got to get up. You got to go to work. And then there's the church. Is the church doing the right thing? Are they really doing the right thing? Are they making the right decisions? When Father was on earth, right? he made decisions, right? He was a big decision maker, and he was always giving us things to do. Go here, go there, go to Los Angeles, go to New York, go to Florida, go to Chicago. We're going to have a speech here. We're going to have 32 speeches. We're going to have 40 speeches. We're going to have 120 speeches. And you're going to bring all these people. And so we were running around for 40 years, scurrying to do the will of our true Father. Then our true Father passed into the spirit world, and we're still, okay, what's Mother going to tell us to do? Mother's very quiet. She said, you know, I'm the only begotten daughter. That's very important. You should consider that. And the second gen child asked true Mother a year or two ago. He said, Mother, what should I be doing? What is my purpose? How can I be fulfilling the will of God? And true Mother told him, what you should do is find out what you love. Find out what you're good at. And then be the best that you can be in whatever it is you decide to do. And when you're the best you can be, you will automatically be testifying to God and true parents. When I heard this, I was very inspired. I was very inspired. You know, technically, I did join the Unification Church back in 1969. But in my heart of hearts, I never joined any church. I don't like churches. I grew up in a very conservative, well, my parents were really devout Christians of the best kind. They were just absolutely wonderful people who believed in God, believed in Jesus. They weren't dogmatic. They just said, if you believe in God, if you believe in Christ, read the Bible and live accordingly. And if you don't live according to the teachings of Jesus, you're not a Christian. Doesn't matter what you say you believe. So my father was never dogmatic. He was one of the most honest, genuine Christians, literally, that I ever met in my life. My mother was very similar. She's very gregarious. When my mother passed away, they moved to Florida. When my mother passed away in 2000, no, when was it? 1984, I believe. Over 200 cars were in her funeral procession. 200 different families went to her funeral because she was such an incredible person. People loved her so much. I grew up in a family with tremendous love. But when I would go to the church, I wouldn't find love. I would find people who were, you know, I want to be in charge. I want to be in charge. No, I want to be in charge. I want to run this. People were backbiting and, you know, spreading rumors about people. And I thought, what kind of religion is this? You know, like, for goodness sakes. So I was, from a very young age, I was looking for a truer way of life. Like, what is a true religion? What is a true way of life? And I actually had some spiritual experiences which led me to believe that I would find something. So when I met the church, my mind was blown. The principle of creation is awesome. It explains what we're here for. Really, if you didn't have the whole rest of the divine principle, but you had the principle of creation, you could figure everything else out. That's how amazing it is. But then I was told I had to join the church. I said, join the church? What? If the Father's the Messiah, if Reverend Moon is the Messiah, I just want to follow the Messiah. I don't want to join a church. I'm fed up with churches. But anyway, I did it, just to make people happy. But I have never been enamored of the Unification Church. As I told several people lately, if the whole Unification Church collapsed tomorrow and disintegrated, it wouldn't bother me one bit. The one very thing that the Unification Church does, which is absolutely critical, is the blessed family ministry. What is the purpose of coming of the Messiah, of true parents? It's not to start a church, not to start another religion. By God, the world has enough religions. We need true families. So I want to applaud John Williams and all the people who are working with the Blessed Family Ministry to make these wonderful programs for people. My son Roderick and his wife Janina went, and they loved it. They said it was awesome. And this leads to my sermon, a very critical point of my sermon, because, okay, I said, I don't know if it's printed here. It doesn't say what my sermon topic is. My sermon topic is My sermon topic is unification existentialism, or how to pack up our sorrows. If you study, and if you study philosophy in college or any time, I think a little bit, a few people, if you study existentialism sometimes gets a bad rap because it started with a very firm Christian believer, Soren Kierkegaard, back in the 1800s. Then it went through Friedrich Nietzsche, who was, most people think he's an atheist. I'm not sure, but he definitely was not friendly toward religion. And then you come to the 20th century. The two major existentialists of the 20th century are Albert Camus and Jean-Paul Sartre, and they're both atheists. And so their point of view is that human beings' life is meaningless. The only meaning you have is the meaning you choose. So they're very big on freedom. They talk about the fact that we are absolutely radically free, and we can do anything we want. We can make any choice, we can make any decision, we can choose any path we want. But there is one very important fundamental caveat in existentialism, which is no whining, no complaining. You know, sometimes at Unification Church we have a lot of holy wine. Sometimes when I come to a church event, I feel like there's a lot of holy wine, W-H-I-N-E, like wine. They're not doing it my way. Look, the way to be happy is to do what you want to do and then not complain to other people if it doesn't work out, okay? If you make a bad choice, well then take responsibility and make a better choice next time, right? It's very simple. There's a very famous psychologist, Shad Helmstetter, who wrote a whole book on what to say when you talk to yourself. Really, what to say when you talk to yourself. And his point is, don't say, I have to, I must, I have to do this. No, if you decide on a certain course of action, then say, I want to do this, I choose to do this. Even if it's difficult, even if you have to, like say you want to become a really strong guy. You got to go to the gym and work out. I'm sure there are days, I don't do that too much, as you can probably see. But anyway, people who want to work out, I'm sure there are days they wake up and say, oh, I don't want to go to the gym today. But if you tell yourself, I don't want to go, then even if you go, you'll be very unhappy. You'll be miserable the whole time. But if you say, you know what? No, I chose this. I want to do this. I want to get in shape. I want to be buff. I want to be ripped. And even though it's difficult, I'm going to do it. Then you can be happy because you are choosing to do it. Now, you might think that existentialism is kind of wacky because they're saying there you have absolute freedom. But think about the divine principle. The most fundamental attribute of human existence, other than love of God, is freedom. Adam and Eve were so radically free that God did not intervene in the fall, even though he knew he could foresee the tragic consequences. He absolutely respected their freedom to choose. If we want to be happy people, we have to be people who choose to do what we do. Now, I look back at my 47 years in the Unification Movement, and there were many years when, God, I did not want to be there. It was very painful. It was very difficult. But thinking back, I don't regret a single second of that. I have no regrets. Were there hard times? You bet there were hard times. Did I have sometimes to work with people who were difficult to work with? More often than not. But no matter how hard it was, no matter how difficult it was, no matter how much indemnity I felt I was paying, my family has been richly blessed. I have great kids, right? So I can't complain because God has blessed me. So you know why I'm happy? Did you hear those people singing? I get that all the time. My kids, my daughters and daughter-in-law and my sons, they sing all the time. They're not great musicians necessarily, and that's not their career path, but they love music and they do it from their heart. So we always have a very happy household full of music. But realistically, I'm happy because I chose to follow true parents. I chose to commit my life to whatever was asked of me. And therefore, I have no regrets because I did everything knowingly. You know, some people ask me sometimes when they can see that life was really tough in a certain situation, they say, Reverend Miller, why do you stick it out when it's such a miserable situation for you and your family? I say, it's very simple. I chose to do this. I committed myself to this, and by God, I am not going to let anyone bump me off my path of what I chose to do. I don't care. So there were people actually in my life who wanted to kick me out of the church. We should get out of here. We don't like you. Get out. And I just look them in the face and say, if you don't like it here with me, you leave. I'm staying, you know. And some of them left. So, but the main point is I chose, and I'm still choosing every day. So freedom requires responsibility. That means we have to take responsibility for what we do. Now, how does that relate to the church? Well, as I said, Mother's not giving a whole lot of direction other than to be tribal messiahs. Well, what does that mean? That means that we have to be responsible for our families, our clans, our tribes, for the people we live near. How do we do that? Well, there's no rule book. The way to be a tribal messiah, yes, you can do things which have been suggested, work together in trinities. You can do this. You can invite people for coffee and teach them the principle. You can do all sorts of things. But the point is, to be a tribal messiah means that we have to be the ones who decide what we're doing, not somebody else. That's why this quote was so important. Father says, you can look over the whole world to find somebody who's a model for you. He said, ultimately speaking, however hard you try to find such a person, you will not find one. You must finally decide that you had better find the perfect model for you within yourself. And this is my message, is that all of us are people of original mind. Now, that means that if we have a question, a burning question about anything, if we think and we pray and we meditate long enough, the answer will come from within ourselves. We have the answers within ourselves. We just have to look. Many times when I hear complaints, it's always complaints because somebody else is not doing what I want them to do, you know? How many times you sit around like, yeah, I wish the church would do this, and I wish the church would do that. Well, who's the bloody church? You're the church. So if the church is not doing what you want it to do, it's because you're not doing it. So I don't want to scold you people, because I don't know if you can. Maybe none of you ever complain. That would be great. But knowing most people, we all tend to complain more than not, right? So what I was thinking about is this. I think that the Blessed Family ministry is extraordinarily important. And as I said, if the whole church collapsed, we kept that. The Unification Church membership, the Unification movement would be fulfilling its purpose. But for a long time, the church has had financial problems and was not able to actually do those sorts of things. One couple out in Washington State, however, David and Mitsue Wolfenberger, decided, well, if nobody else is going to do it, we're going to do it. And so they donated $100,000 to kickstart the Blessed Marriage Ministry. And they keep giving more money each year to help keep it going and make it possible, as John Williams said, to go up to Vermont, New Hampshire, and have a very inexpensive, beautiful retreat for 3 days up in the woods, you know. This is a couple who decided not to wait around for somebody else to do what they thought needed to be done. They just took it upon themselves to do it. If we want to be happy people and want to pack up our sorrows and give them all away, then we need to be self-starters. We need to be the people who can determine for ourselves what we think should be done and how we can best go about getting that done. So if you start something and you try something, if it works, wow, we're going to be happy. If it doesn't work, you're going to say, well, that didn't work. Let me try something else. It's always a matter of assessing what we're doing, if it's working or not working, and trying to do a better job on it. Now, existentialists refer to this as living authentically. To live authentically means we can't just slide into life. We can't just be people who always are doing, well, the community wants me to do this, or the community wants me to do that, or someone said we should do this, or someone said we should do that, and I guess I better do it. I don't really want to do it, but I'll do it anyway. No, that is not living authentically. I teach philosophy and ethics at Widener University, which is just south of Philadelphia, right near the Delaware border. And I'm always amazed when I ask, I don't want to talk about politics, which is one thing. I'll ask my students sometimes, who are you voting for? This is not a test. I'm not going to grade you on it. I want to know who you're voting for. Or do you know who you're voting for? Yes? Okay, no. Why are you voting for that person? Because my friends are voting for that person. But why are your friends voting for that person? Well, because their friends are voting. In other words, a lot of young people today, they don't really know why they do anything. It's just that it's cool and everybody else is doing it, so I might as well do it. That is, from an existentialist point of view, that's living inauthentically. To live authentically means to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Now, I see a lot of Asian faces in the audience. Any Japanese here today? A few. Many of you will remember Reverend Ken Sudo, right? I studied under Reverend Sudo for several years back in the early 70s. And the one thing I remember him saying over and over and over is, an offering has no mouth. An offering has no mouth. That means, how many of you went carp fishing in the seminary years? Any seminary grads yet? Well, anyway, why is the carp considered a holy fish or nearly holy fish in Asia? If you take a carp and you stick your finger in its mouth, it becomes completely quiet. It won't move. It won't wiggle. And if you're making an offering, you want to be like the carp. You want to present yourself to God and true parents without complaint. There's a passage where I couldn't find it today, but where I read Father said, the worst thing you can do is to devote many years of your life to God and then complain about it afterwards. It's like spitting on your offering. It's like contaminating the offering. Sometimes we change. Sometimes our attitudes change, our desires change, what we think we should do changes. Fine. I decided to do this 10 years ago and I did it, and now I'm not sure it worked out the way I wanted, or I'm not sure the church is, really using my offering properly. Okay. But you made it. We made it with a good heart, a loving heart. So then, leave the offering on the altar. And if you want to make a different kind of offering, go ahead, choose a different path. But we should not be people of complaint. We should not be people who are complaining, because it destroys your own heart. It doesn't. You know why hate and anger are so terrible? Hate and anger don't hurt the people you're angry at. It kills you. We need to be people who are happy people. We have every reason to be happy. And in order to be happy, we all have to become unification existentialists, okay? So look up that word when you get home. It's a good word. It's got a bad rap, perhaps because people think, oh, they're all a bunch of atheists. No. Well, yes, some of them are. But you don't need to be an atheist. You can be a unification existentialist. In other words, you can understand God is calling us to do something, and we need to decide ourselves how we're going to respond to that call. Many years ago, I said, as Kenshin, he said I lectured the principal over 1,000 times. That's true. Many workshops I did, people would come up at the end and say, Reverend Miller, does this mean that I should join the Unification Church? And I would say, I don't know. How can I tell you to join the Unification Church? You are a different person. You have a different path. Remember this, back in the 70s, joining the Unification Church was no light thing. I mean, we get up at 5 or 6 a.m., work until midnight, 1, 2 a.m., go to sleep for 3 or 4 hours, and get up and do the same thing 7 days a week, 365 days of the year. I don't remember there being too many vacations during that time period. Yeah. So if somebody said to me, should I join the Unification Church? I'm thinking, God, I don't know. Can you last a week? So what I would say is, I can't tell you whether or not you should join the Unification Church. That's between you and God. But what I can advise you is, if you like the divine principle, you should study it. Go to another 3-day workshop or 7-day workshop or 21-day workshop, really, and take the book home with you and think about it and pray it and about it and read it. And then, if your heart tells you, yes, Reverend Moon is the Messiah, yes, this is something I must do, then it will be your decision. And so people who decide that way are much more likely to be committed members because they've made their own decision. I know for a fact that people who were kind of pushed, like, yeah, you have to do it, go, join. 6 months later, they're like, I'm out of here, man. You guys misled me, whatever. They make up all sorts of excuses, but you didn't really need too many excuses. There was a lot of reasons to leave, but there were a lot of reasons to stay. But it really entails making the decision yourself. So I don't want to spend too much longer on this. I want to say that I believe that this is the age of Chunilguk. This is the age of true freedom and true happiness. And we should be the happiest people in the world. We should be. Amazing things are happening. Miracles are happening. I'll give you one example real quick. Those of you who know me may know that I'm generally a very happy person, happy-go-lucky. I have a very big sense of responsibility, but I try to be really laid back. But if someone insults me and says something which I think is untrue, I really hate untrueness. And I have a hair-trigger temper, like, why'd you say that? And I've been like this since I was about 5 years old, I think. So for 60 years of my life, 61 years of my life, I have been struggling. My one cardinal sin is my inability to keep my mouth shut when I'm angry. I just blurt out stuff, and then afterwards I think, why did I say that? That's the one thing that I have been regretted over the years. And I've prayed about it, and I've prayed about it, and I've prayed about it. And my youngest son, the one, Sonia, who did the reading, he sort of inherited a little bit of that from me. So I said, no, inherit the good things, not the bad things, please. But one day, I was getting upset about something, and then a few minutes later, he was getting upset about something, and I said, we got to do something about this. And he said, Dad, I haven't. And this was right in the middle of the 40-day condition to inherit the new holy wine, right? We're praying every day, and in the middle of this condition, he says to me, Dad, I think I have a suggestion. If I see you getting angry and starting to boil, or if you see me getting angry and starting to boil, why don't we have a code word like, hey, would you like an avocado? And it just struck me like, that's a great phrase, because avocados are green and soft, and there's nothing spicy or angry about avocados, right? We started doing that, and I have not really been angry since then. I mean, I start to boil, and then he says, hey, Dad, I think you need an avocado. In fact, right in the middle of the 40-day prayer condition, my wife said something to me which I misunderstood, and I started getting angry, and she started getting angry. So I'm supposed to pray, right? We've done our vows, and we're about to pray, and I just thought, this is the bad condition to pray when I'm feeling angry. So before I prayed, I said, I think we both need a few avocados before we pray. And it worked. It really worked. So amazing things are happening. Just amazing things are happening. And we're just so lucky to live at this time of true parents. So in conclusion, I want to come back and say, look, the main point here is, number one, we all want to be happy. We all have many reasons to be happy because we're so blessed by God and true parents. But life impinges on us. We have conditions that we should do and things that people ask us to do. And what I'm telling you is, we don't have to do anything that we don't want to do, but we should think deeply and carefully and then decide what conditions or what actions we're going to take. And if you think Pastor Minoz or anybody is not doing the thing that you want, well, why don't you or why don't we suggest how to do it better, how to do something, take responsibility. Don't even wait for the church to do something. If you think there should be a workshop for second gen and no one's doing it, rent a space and invite everybody and then give the workshop. Don't wait for other people, because ultimately, and this goes back to the divine principle, we are supposed to be co-creators with God. We are supposed to be sons and daughters, co-creators, not robots, not slaves, not servants, but sons and daughters. That means taking responsibility, using our own creativity, and when we do that, then we can be the happiest people in the world. Because no matter what, we made the decision. Now, one of the things that's being asked, encouraged, is to attend the Washington Monument celebration next Saturday. I think most of you are probably pretty enthusiastic about it, because how many of you were there? Right? A lot of you were there. My wife and I were there. It was amazing. Do you know the meaning of a Washington Monument? Do you know the real meaning? It is the reversal of the crucifixion of Jesus. Jesus was crucified by the Romans. Father came to Washington Monument, and he was welcomed by the 20th century Rome. Overwhelmingly welcomed. This is one of the most momentous events in all of human history, other than the Holy Blessing itself. This is amazing. And we were part of it. Now, we're going to go back there. We're not going to have 300,000 people, I don't think, but we can actually make our voices heard. We can remember what it was like. We can try to explain to our children, who were not there yet, what it was like to be there and have this sea of people clapping for, praising, accepting true parents. It was an amazing event. And it's something that, which we should never regret anything we did to contribute to this providence. And the same thing goes on today. Anything we can do to contribute to the providence is something that we should be very happy to do. So if you like church activities and meetings, then by all means, get involved and do your best to make it the best church and the most exciting and the most dramatic and the most exhilarating church. But if you're not like a church, you don't like big crowds or lots of meetings, then find something that you do like, that you can do personally. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I don't know what you like. David Eaton's over. He likes music. He does music all the time. That's what he does. That's his offering. I have a big mouth. I talk a lot. So if you come to my house, I'll talk your ear off, But the thing is, we need to choose how we want to contribute to the providence. So I would say, September 17th, I'm going to get there. God darn it, if I have to walk, if I have to crawl, I'm going to be there because I was there 40 years ago, and I'm not going to let this amazing memory slip by without commemorating it and trying to get people from all over America to recognize the fact that Reverend Moon is and was truly a man of God, truly God's central figure for the providence for this era. And we need to uphold true parents and love true parents and love and protect our true mother. We really need to give her our support, our undying, unwavering support, so that she can continue to fulfill God's will. I pray with all my heart that True Mother will live another 30 years at least, so that she can really bring God's family back together again and heal the unification nation and heal all the nations. But she can't do it without our love and our support. So I pray that we can all be really united in loving God and true parents, and I pray that we can be happy people, that we will choose to be the happiest people on the face of the earth. And I thank you for this. I'd like to invite the Silverlarks back up here to conclude with a little song. And I also want to say in conclusion, let's meet at the monument, okay?